Hi everyone, welcome back to yet another session of Hamlet, and today let's discuss the summary of Act 3, Scene 2. Act 3, Scene 2 begins with Hamlet's advice to the actors. We know through the previous scenes that Hamlet has already asked the company of actors to stage a play called The Murder of Gonzago. And it was further proposed that he would insert some lines of his own into the play, and the actors have to by heart these lines and to incorporate these lines while they are acting the play. So, Hamlet's advice to the actors. This scene takes place in a hall in the castle. Hamlet enters with 2 or 3 of the actors. Hamlet instructs the actors as to how they should deliver their speeches on the stage. He asks them to speak neither in too rhetorical a manner nor in too modest a manner. So Hamlet doesn't want the actors to be too eloquent or too humble in their speech. He has a word of advice for the clowns also. Let the clowns not be too crude in their efforts to make the audience laugh, he says. So he also doesn't want the clowns to be too natural in their acting and to make the people laugh. He doesn't want them to make the people laugh. And he says this so that the humor of the clowns does not distract the audience from the true meaning of the play. We know that Hamlet wants to find out whether King Claudius is behind the murder or not. So if there is like too much laughter and all, there is a scope for distraction, and Hamlet doesn't want that to happen, and that is why he is giving these advice to the actors and the clowns. Horatio willing to help Hamlet. Polonius, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern enter. Polonius informs Hamlet that both the king and the queen have agreed to witness the performance of the actors. Polonius and the 2 courtiers then leave, and Horatio enters. So Polonius enters the stage along with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and he lets Hamlet know that King Claudius and Gertrude will be there to watch the performance of the actors, and then they leave the stage. Horatio enters, and Hamlet tells Horatio that he has always held a high opinion of his character and his judgment, and that he now needs his cooperation in assessing the reaction of the king to the performance of a play which he has asked the actors to enact. The king's reactions, says Hamlet, might make it possible for them to judge if the ghost has given a true account of the kind of death Hamlet's father had met. Hamlet has, we now learn, taken Horatio into confidence about the ghost's revelations. We know that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, the childhood friends of Hamlet, under the counsel of King Claudius, have tried their very best to understand what is going on in the mind of Hamlet. But Hamlet doesn't give in to their plan, and in fact, he confides in his friend Horatio, his university friend Horatio. And Hamlet asks Horatio to help him to assess the reaction of King Claudius when he watches the performance of the actors, and Horatio promises his cooperation. Hamlet, convinced of the king's guilt. The play begins. So the play enacted by the actors, that is The Murder of Gonzago, begins. A king and a queen appear on the stage, with the queen making extravagant protestations of her devotion and loyalty to her husband. The queen then leaves, and the king's nephew appears on the stage. This nephew pours poison into the sleeping king's ear. At this point, King Claudius, feeling agitated by the trend of the story being depicted on the stage, gets up and leaves, followed by Queen Gertrude and all their attendants. Hamlet is left alone with Horatio. It is now clear to Hamlet that King Claudius is really guilty of having poisoned his father to death. So King Claudius is agitated when he watches the scene where the nephew of the king pours poison into the sleeping king's ear. Because that was how he killed King Hamlet. And by watching this reaction of King Claudius, now Hamlet and Horatio is clear that what the ghost had told Hamlet was completely true, and it was King Claudius who really killed his father. So in this scene, Hamlet is convinced of the king's guilt. Presently, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern re-enter and tell Hamlet that his mother wants to speak to him in her chamber immediately. On these two gentlemen trying to probe Hamlet regarding the cause of his melancholy, Hamlet snubs them by saying that they should not be deceived into thinking that they can extract any information from him about what is weighing on in his mind. So Rosencrantz and Guildenstern enter and they tell Hamlet that his mother wants to see him immediately. And they again try to understand what is going on in the mind of Hamlet. They start asking questions to Hamlet. And Hamlet insults them by saying that they should never ever think that Hamlet would ever open up to them. He tells them that there is no chance that he is going to tell them what is weighing on in his mind. Polonius enters and he too conveys to Hamlet his mother's wish to have a talk with him. Then all leave and Hamlet is left alone. In a brief soliloquy, Hamlet says that this is the most appropriate time for his bloody revenge, but resolves not to do any physical harm to his mother. I will speak daggers to her, but use none, he says. So Polonius also informs him that Gertrude wants to have a talk with his son Hamlet, and everybody leave and Hamlet is left alone. Then we have a brief soliloquy by Hamlet in this scene where he says that I will speak daggers to her, but use none. And when he says this, we know that Hamlet was angry on his mother because of her decision to marry his uncle. And Gertrude married Claudius even before the mourning period or the lamenting period of her husband was over. This made Hamlet extremely furious, and so he decided to kill his mother by words and not with daggers. So he will not physically harm her, but will use harsh words and make her suffer emotionally. And so he sets off to see his mother. So here ends this scene as assignment. Note down your views on this scene. Thank you and have a nice day.